If you're in the UK, good evening. If they're in the US, good afternoon. I don't know if anybody it's in the morning. Any ideas, Mr. Isaac? There.
I don't know who would be in the morning hours right now. Maybe Tokyo, Japan, or someplace like that. I don't know.
Well, we should definitely see. On today's show, we talk Britt Baker's comments on Swerve's podcast, the Carl Anderson situation with New Japan, the Elite obviously return, and topic of my guest Tuesday. And for our main event, it's a role reversal. Let's get to do this, shall we? And please welcome back my guest, the resident expert himself, Mr. Isaacs. How are we?
Good evening, Liam. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, whatever the hell time it is for anybody after they watch this. How you doing, my man?
I'm doing very, very well, mate. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing fine and dandy in this wonderful evening.
Absolutely. Good week?
It's been a good week, man. Very busy, very hectic, ramping up, getting ready for Halloween, and it's gonna be good times.
Sweet. Are you doing anything exciting for Halloween?
Well, we're doing like a family Halloween party deal tomorrow, so that should be fun. And I'll probably give out candy Monday night.
Is alcohol involved?
Probably.
Dear.
I can just about guarantee it will be. So.
So obviously, it was announced obviously a few weeks ago that you're going to be the co-host from December. I've not had a chance to speak to you yet. What's your opinion on this? Are you happy with this?
I'm very excited about it. Yeah, I'm thrilled at the opportunity. I think we're going to have a lot of fun together. I think we're going to get into some really interesting topics and bring some cool people on. And yeah, it's going to be awesome, man. I look forward to it.
Absolutely. Obviously, as I mentioned there, if there's any topics you want to cover, let us know. Then we can absolutely cover this. So yeah. I'm absolutely excited. I don't know what you're going to cover yet, so we shall see. But yes, from December is it 1st or 2nd? I can't remember which. When's the first show on that one?
I'd have to look at the calendar. That would probably be December 3rd. That's a Saturday.
Yeah, December, whatever. Yeah, you know what I mean. So, yes, obviously December 3rd will obviously your debut episode. I cannot wait. So, but enough rambling on. Let's get into some things, shall we? So, let's get into our part one. We call the Magic Weekly. Now, on the board, you will see 4 images. Now, each image represents a different story, which has gone off in the past couple of weeks. You can do these in any order you want. So, which one do you want? 1, 2, 3, or 4?
I think we should stick with a linear order here. Let's go with number 1.
Okay, number 1 it is. Now, Britt Baker was obviously on Swerve's podcast, and she made some interesting comments. I want to get your opinion on this. What is so toxic is when somebody thinks they're bigger than the company or that the company needs them. That's literally no one in AEW that they need. Other than Tony Khan to survive, everybody can be replaced. What's your opinion on these comments?
Well, I'm curious to know because I saw people online say that this was directed towards Thunder Rosa, but I mean, with everything that's come out this week, I kind of wonder if it's about CM Punk. So I don't know exactly who it's about. Did she say? I mean, I'm sure she didn't.
But no, there's no comment saying who it was, but I think a lot of people. I think it's obviously Thunder Rosa. Do you think it's Thunder Rosa?
Yeah, I think it's Thunder Rosa. I mean, I think that her and Punk were pretty cool with each other. So I don't think she's talking about Punk. I think she's talking about Thunder Rosa. And in regards to whether or not that's a true statement, I would say that it's half and half depending on who you're talking about. I mean, if you're talking about Thunder Rosa, she's a great wrestler, but yeah, she's replaceable. If you're talking about CM Punk, that's a bit different because then you're talking like a difference of thousands of viewers.
So, yeah. I agree.
I think it just really depends on who she's talking about. I think she's probably talking about Thunder Rosa because I know that it's been rumored that they've had an issue with each other. So that's what I think. So yeah, I mean, I disagree and agree. I agreed. It depends on who she's talking about again, whether or not they're replaceable, or if they're not.
Who knows? Who knows? The comment what's thrown me is that bit where they think they're bigger than the company. Do you think there's any wrestlers in AEW who think they're bigger than the company?
If I had to guess, I would say Jericho probably thinks that. That would be my assumption. I don't know about anybody else. I don't really think Danielson would think that. I mean, possibly Punk. I don't know. I could see Jericho thinking that though, because he's just, he's kind of got, he dips his toes in a little bit of everything. He's a rock star. He does acting, and he does a podcast, which half the time isn't about wrestling. So I could see that.
Well, we shall definitely see what happens over the next few weeks with these obviously comments. So, which one do you want next? 2, 3, or 4?
Stick to our order here. Let's go with number 2.
Now, I'm sure you can take a guess what the story is with the Image.
Oh yeah, the never open weight championship debacle.
I'll let you talk about this one. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it was just kind of a poor timing deal. I think that that obviously he was on a handshake agreement with New Japan. Mm-hmm. WWE came knocking, offered him money, and okay, well I'll go work over there with you guys then, because it's probably a lot more money than what New Japan can afford to pay. I hope that he honors his commitment and shows up for New Japan. But I don't know. It just depends. I mean, historically, the WWE has not allowed wrestlers to do that, but this is a new era. So I don't know. It's a very real possibility that Triple H will let him go and do the honorable thing and drop the title at a New Japan card. I don't know. It just remains to be seen, but it'll be kind of interesting to see how this is handled, because this is going to kind of set the precedent moving forward.
Yeah, really interesting. How do you actually see this playing out?
I think that the WWE will allow him to do a one-off. I think he'll go and he'll drop the title. I think he's wrestling Hikuleo. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. I think he'll go and he'll drop the belt to Hikuleo, and then he'll come back to Monday Night Raw, and they'll act like it never happened. That's what I think will happen.
Yeah, I think that's well said there. I mean, we shall definitely see, but who knows? But what do you reckon? So obviously the video put it out, like kind of like firing back at New Japan in a way.
Yeah, I don't know. I hadn't seen it, but it's honestly probably just building up the match. I mean, it's probably just kind of taking on a heel role and building up the match, because I do think it's going to happen.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think that obviously we'll defend it and obviously drop it to obviously Hikuleo, but
it'd be very surprising if he went and retained.
Yeah, be more even awkward, but we
shall
definitely
see. Very, very strange turn of events. Maybe we'd see a forbidden door of a whole different type there, but he's going to go drop it to Hikuleo.
Yeah, absolutely. But obviously, there's also been reports of him obviously vacating the title. Do we see that being an option?
It always is. Yeah, I mean, that's always an option too. I hope to see him follow through with it, just because I'm kind of curious to see what kind of opportunities could open up if WWE and New Japan do have at least a minimal agreement to exchange one piece of talent on one night. Could lead to something different. Who knows? So I hope that's the case. But they strip champions all the time. They have that goofy clause where if somebody doesn't defend a title in 30 days, they strip them. And so I mean, New Japan's used to that. They strip champions all the time. So I wouldn't be surprised.
Ask John Moxley.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, so I think I know this one anyway, but I'm going to ask 3 or 4.
Let's go with 3, my man.
So there's a lot of reports that the Elite's coming back. We saw the video package on Dynamite. I'm sure you covered it on Dynamite After Dark. Your thoughts?
Yeah, and just to kind of reiterate what I said there, it's pretty abundantly clear with this promo and the news that they were backstage and some of the stuff that's coming out of Fightful and from Meltzer this week. It's pretty abundantly clear that Tony Khan's made his choice. He's going with the Elite. For better or for worse, he's going with the Elite. And it looks like they're coming back. it was an interesting promo, them kind of erasing themselves from AEW history and the E and AEW disappearing. I kind of wonder if they're going to come in kind of like outsiders and be kind of like heels, and you wouldn't have this place if it wasn't for us, that kind of deal. I mean, I could see that being entertaining, but we'll just have to see how this goes. I think this is a pretty clear sign that Punk's never coming back.
Yeah, obviously we spoke about obviously the whole debacle backstage. Obviously, we haven't seen the Elite for a while. Are you a fan, obviously, without them? I know that's a little dicky thing to say, but
I don't think the show really hurts without them, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't have anything against them. I think they're a bit arrogant, honestly, and I think that they believe that they're a lot bigger in the business than they actually are, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, I think Kenny Omega is a great wrestler, and I think the Bucks are great wrestlers. I really do, but I do think they're very full of themselves. I think they think that they're the end-all, be-all of wrestling, and they probably do really think that AEW wouldn't survive and wouldn't exist without them. But I mean, I would like to see what they can do if they come back, because I do think that if Omega can still go, if his health is still holding up, there's still matches there I'd like to see from him. Definitely. So let's let it play out and see what happens. I think the shows have been just fine without them, to be honest with you, but they're clearly coming back. So let's see how this goes.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, as you mentioned there with Punk, it doesn't look like he's coming back. Will this actually hurt AEW in the long run, or will it just be a simple? Okay, elaborate.
I absolutely think this will hurt them in the long run. I mean, there's no doubt, and I've seen a lot of people say the contrary, and some people the other night on the AEW Dynamite After Dark show were saying the contrary. But I'm sorry, man, if Punk leaves, they're going to lose a lot of business. I mean, it's not going to tank the company, but there definitely was a rating spike when Punk came in. It wasn't huge, it wasn't enormous, but they did have a spike, and the pay-per-view sales did have a spike. Again, it wasn't enormous, but they did have a spike. I think there's no doubt this is going to hurt business, which is very unfortunate. I mean, this situation's very unfortunate. AEW's made a lot of progress business-wise over the past year, and I hate to see them kind of take a step back, but I definitely think this is going to be worse for business. But who knows? Maybe the locker room morale might go up, and maybe that'll positively affect the product. I don't know, but I do think losing the star power of Punk is going to hurt the business.
Yeah, we shall. Obviously, Ace Steel's obviously been released. We'll probably see in the next few months when obviously Punk goes. So there's one left. It's obviously number 4. Now, this is always my favorite topic of your choosing. This is where you get the chance to talk about anything you want in wrestling. So, what do we talk about today?
Well, what I would like to discuss is where the WWE is going with this Bray Wyatt situation and the character, because it's kind of weird what they're doing with him. It's like they've got the good guy Bray Wyatt, who's just like so happy to be back, and I wasn't sure I could ever do this again or whatever, yada yada. And then you've got the guy with the evil face that shows up on the screen like he's, kind of the puppet master controlling good guy Bray. Now, I've seen a lot of people online speculate that maybe the guy with the mask is Bo Dallas, but I don't think that's the case. I think what's going on here is, I personally think that this is an internal struggle with Bray Wyatt. This is a 3 faces of Foley kind of deal. And there's going to be the good guy Bray Wyatt that's just this kind of subdued, all shucks, I'm so happy to be back, I'm going to cry because you guys are cheering for me. And then the evil side of Bray Wyatt, that's kind of like his alter ego that comes up at certain times and makes him do evil, harsh shit. That's what I think. But what do you think, Liam?
I think you're right. I think, they brought him back, which obviously was a big deal. I mean, we saw the pop there, but I think they don't actually know what to do with Bray at the minute. I think it's like an identity crisis for him.
To me, it was so weird that he came back at the end of the last pay-per-view, and then he came out and he did the weird promo and everything that ended the show, and then the next week he was just in a backstage promo with weird music playing in the background, and I was like, okay, if they already kind of lost the direction here, like, I mean, I guess we'll see what they do on this week's SmackDown, but yeah, that was a little off-putting for me. I think that kind of derailed the train, so to speak.
Yeah, I think you're right on there. I think they don't know what to do with him yet, but obviously Triple H he's made a lot of significant changes, obviously, as we discussed last week. But we shall definitely see. But at the minute, I'm not seeing where they go from here, so who knows?
Yeah, I agree.
So that's obviously the end of the Magic Weekly. So let's get into our main event.
The main event.
I'm sorry, but I love that ending bit.
yeah, I hadn't seen that one before. That's pretty awesome. It's like a retro WWF arcade game, like the WrestleFest I used to play when I was a kid all the time.
Yeah, thank you. That's obviously thanks to our good friend Canada Dry. He built that for us, and I just love the ending, so I thought I'd just use it. So.
They do a great job with the production of the stuff. I mean, the graphics and the little transition effects and everything. I'm like, wow, man, these are some like Full Sail Hollywood types.
Absolutely. So you've been on this show. Is it third, fourth time now? This is.
Oh, geez, I don't even know. It's probably fourth or fifth, I would imagine.
So obviously the past two times we've obviously done some like little question things. Obviously you are the resident expert. So today I said, you know what, let's mix it up a little bit, shall we? So that way you do a little role reversal. So I do believe you've got some questions for me. I've kind of excited to see what these are, but have you searched the whole internet for this?
Yes. I scoured the internet. I looked under every rock, every like shady link that was going to give me malware and try to kill me and give my computer AIDS. No, I found it all, man. I went to the deep, dark depths of the web. I went to Quora. I tried to go to Yahoo Answers. Apparently, that's shut down, by the way.
Really? Okay, I did not know that.
And some of these I even just came up with myself, and then some of them are anonymous submissions by the All Effing Wrestling community. So,
wait, what? How the hell did you get all them?
Well, I when you were asleep over there in Britain land one night, I went in the little chat and said, "Hey, you guys got questions for the Magic Man? I want you to send them to me. They can be absurd, or they can be real questions. I prefer absurd, but throw them out there, and I'll ask it to them. Nothing's off limits." So
no, that's it. So obviously now this is the main event. It's over to you. Go ahead.
All right. We are at the main event, and this is going to be question time with the Magic Man, led by Mr. Isaacs this time. So let's get right into it. I got a list of questions right here in front of me on the smartphone. Let's go. All right. Question number one, Magic Man. And this one, I'm curious to see what you say, because I've always kind of wondered this. Who is the most popular British wrestler of all time in the UK? Like, who do you all see as like your country's Hulk Hogan or Antonio Inoki or Bret Hart?
So that's quite an easy one. It's obviously Davey Boy Smith. I mean, the guy obviously main evented SummerSlam. I think it was SummerSlam. I mean, but yeah. If you ask any wrestling fan in the UK with the number one British one, 9 times out of 10, it's going to have to be the Davey Boy Smith. And for me, it's Davey Boy Smith as well. We have obviously had a lot of obviously good wrestlers from the UK, but I think for what he's achieved is probably second to none. Straight to the point.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, him headlining what is it, Wembley Stadium over there against Bret Hart. That was phenomenal. Like, that was a great match. That was so electric. That crowd was super hot. I kind of figured that was going to be your answer, but I was just kind of curious to know, because I haven't heard a lot of what UK wrestling fans, who they grow up idolizing, like who they consider to be like their Hulk Hogan. But that makes total sense.
Yeah. So Davey Boy Smith, me.
All right, question number 2 here. Now we're getting into the absurd a little bit. How do professional wrestlers stay friends with each other when they're beating each other up in storyline?
Oh, whoever sent that one, that is a really good one. I think it's one of them where they get like into like a zone type thing. I think obviously backstage they'll all be like pally and stuff, but as soon as they get through that ring, it's like they're in the way I see it is like they get into like a little zone type thing where it's like, okay, I want to beat the shit out of you, even though you're my best friend. But then back out of the ring, they're like really obviously good friends.
Yeah. I always kind of wondered if any pro wrestlers were like how they refer to like method acting, where like a guy will act his part like 24/7. I always kind of wondered if they ever did that with each other instead of kayfabing backstage. They would do method acting and just get the fuck out of my face. The faces and the heels get into it. I kind of doubt that ever happened, but
what about you? How do you see him obviously doing that?
It's just like actors on a TV show, man. It's like I doubt that the actor who plays Batman and the actor who plays the Joker, even if they stiff each other a little bit in a fight sequence, I'm sure they're totally fine afterwards, unless they're doing that weird method acting stuff. But yeah. I mean, unless they're really, really super snug with each other, like I don't know, Brett and Sean or something like that. I'd say it's not a problem. I think most professional wrestlers know that, if they get accidentally hit with a stiff shot, that it's not the other guy's fault 9 times out of 10. And they just kind of chalk it up to being part of the business.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
All right. This one should be interesting. Who is the most shameful professional wrestler of all time? And I'm just going to throw out a limb here because they didn't specify. So I'm going to say either something they did in real life or something they did on screen. I'll let you choose which one.
So, what is most shameful? Ooh, that's a tough one. This is going to be a controversial one, but the only person who sticks out for me is obviously Tessa Blanchard. More so for what she obviously did backstage. I mean, as a talent, I think she's absolutely on point, brilliant, straight to the thing. But you see all these reports that she's obviously racist backstage, stuff like that. It kind of takes it away, and I just think I can never look at it the same way again, to be honest.
Yeah, I kind of think Tessa's damaged goods. Yeah, and that sucks because she's so talented. She's so talented. She has an amazing look. She was great at playing like a bitchy heel type. It's just a real shame, but yeah, I definitely can see how she's the most shameful today. That's for sure. All time, I would say, and this is kind of a cop out answer, I would say Chris Benoit.
Yeah. I kind of like trying to stay away from that one. So
right.
The other one is actually, and I've just thought of this while I'm here, is Marty Scurll.
Oh yes, yeah,
that one.
We don't have to get into specifics there, but yeah, Marty Scurll is one of those guys that kind of got accused of some things, and yeah.
Well, rest his piece of cake.
I mean, you could throw in Scurll, you could throw in Joey Ryan. I mean, there's several of those guys who
you could do a top 10 list
like that too. So I mean, there's like a whole list of them. But okay, let's move on to something a little more lighthearted here, shall we? When it comes to the supernatural in wrestling, why do wrestlers like The Undertaker and Kane get a pass, whereas a wrestler like Bray Wyatt gets criticized? And I'm curious to see what you say about this.
Oh, dear. So, as regards to The Undertaker, I think his character was... The thing is with Bray Wyatt, I think that because we've seen it with The Undertaker, it's like nothing new. I mean, back in them days, Kane and Undertaker was probably the most unique paranormal characters you can think of, but I think modern day, creepy wise, I think that it just doesn't draw the audience for me. I think that you just try and be the Undertaker a little bit, but it's just because we've seen it before, we're not going to see it again, and it doesn't seem to work for me.
All right, the way that I see that is I think it's kind of an issue of how extreme they go. With paranormal.
Yeah.
So like, with like Undertaker and Kane, it's a lot of like lighting effects and, little psych out things like that, that theoretically, if everything was legitimate in a shoot, maybe he knows somebody in production that can hit the lights at a certain time or something like that. Just kind of playing some mind games. Whereas Bray Wyatt gets hit in the head with a sledgehammer in the Hell in a Cell match and isn't hurt by it. So I think there's a bit of a difference there. I mean, that's what I think is the difference. Now, I know that obviously there was some stuff like that with Kane later on too, but that's kind of how I see it. But would you agree with that as well?
Yeah, I think you're on point there with what you've said there. I think the effects, obviously, back in the old days were really, really good, but now I think they use too many effects, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I mean, even outside of Undertaker and Kane, you had Papa Shango, with the, who later became the Godfather for anybody who's younger out there that doesn't know who I'm talking about, who did voodoo curses on people. And like, he would have enhancement talent with like ooze coming out of their mouth after he pins them. And that was fun. All right. So this is a submission from the All F and Wrestling community, anonymously, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever been to Dollywood?
I have not. I love to go to. Wait, you said Dollywood or Hollywood?
Dolly with a D. Do you know where Dollywood is, Liam?
I know where Hollywood is. I don't know where Dollywood is. Has Dollywood said this?
So Hollywood is Los Angeles, right? That's just like a nickname for Los Angeles, where all the movies and everything in this country are made. Dollywood is a theme park owned by the country music singer Dolly Parton, and it's in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, which is just a little bit south of where I live. So that's what Dollywood is, if you didn't actually know what Dollywood is.
I did not, so I feel like an idiot now. But I would love to go there because it sounds so much fun.
It is fun. I've been there a couple times, rode the roller coasters and everything. It was a good time. Yeah, I liked it. But,
so today's knowledge is brought to you by the resident expert.
I wouldn't expect a guy who grew up in the UK to know what Dollywood actually is.
Oh, dear. Do we actually know who sent that question in? Because I'm really interested.
Oh, I know who sent it.
Dollywood?
Canada Dry.
Fucking hell, Canada Dry.
Now, I wasn't going to tell you, but you asked, so.
Well,
I'll tell you.
I've got a Raskana, so.
Okay, and the next question, again, this is anonymous as well, and I think you might pick up on who asked this one. What is Canada Dry really like?
Has Canada Dry sent that one?
Yes, he did.
I'm going to go out on a little thingy. I'm just going to be truthfully honest. I mean, I know a lot of people, obviously, he upsets for obvious reasons, but the guy's got heart. He has. He's a really big heart. I mean, obviously, we always talk before we go live, and you can see he's passionate about, obviously, All Left in Wrestling. I mean, obviously, we've got All Left in Wrestling show. We've got the Magic of Wrestling, which is my show. You're part of the thing now. Yeah, and I think he's always looking to try and make people happy, but I think sometimes a lot of people do misjudge him in a way. I mean, you've obviously spoke to him recently as well. What's your opinion?
I think he's a great guy. I think he's hilarious. I think he's funny. I think he's smart. I do think it's funny to see him in the chat sometimes. He bickers back and forth with people, and I can tell he's just bullshitting with them. Like, he's not like trying to be a jerk or anything. It's just funny. And, he's even, kind of called out a couple of my opinions on the shows. And, I just laugh and go along with it. I know he's not doing it to be a dick. It's funny.
Oh dear, but yeah, that's probably my honest answer there.
Now, I was gonna kayfabe this and just be like, do you like ginger ale, Liam? Do you actually like Canada Dry ginger ale? Have you ever had it before? Do you know what it is? Do they sell it in the UK?
Yeah, they do.
They do? Okay. Are you a fan of it? Have you tried it?
I don't drink, funnily enough.
All right.
End of discussion. Next story.
All right, I've got one more anonymous question from the All F and Wrestling community. This one's a bit weird. I'm not gonna lie, this one's a little strange for me to be asking you on this podcast, but it was insisted that I ask it. So, are you a boob or butt man?
Sorry. Oh wow.
Now, you can decline to answer this if you want, but
no, because it's a fun episode. I'm a boob man. All right, there you go.
Okay.
I'm not going to elaborate on that because I could probably get fucking demonetized or anything. Oh dear.
Yeah, we don't want demonetization here. No, that's not what we're striving for. When Mr. Isaacs is joining the show, we're looking to strengthen the monetization, not take it back. So
there you go.
We're just going to leave it at that. And shame on whoever that anonymous person is that asked that question, because that's
Who was it? Who was it?
It was Canada Dry.
Of course it was.
All right,
dear.
moving on. We'll go back to some wrestling topics, if you will. This is a wrestling show. Why do non-wrestling fans feel the need to tell wrestling fans, you know it's fake, right? Now, do you get this a lot? Have you gotten this? I'm sure you have.
I think everybody's got it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I always give them the same response. Yeah, and as simple as that. I mean, it's yeah, and I enjoy it. Do you know what I mean? I love the storylines. There's more into wrestling than what you think, and then they walk off. Funnily enough,
so
I get.
So why do you think they ask that? Like, what do you think is the preconceived notion that wrestling fans think it's real? Like, where do you think that comes from?
I think it's because one, they don't actually like wrestling, and I think the internet obviously ruined it as well. I think that obviously there's so much on the internet now. I mean, you can obviously see what goes into wrestling, what goes off behind the scenes, and I think for some people out in the world, it does take away from the wrestling thing. But there's passionate fans like myself, obviously you, obviously everybody in the community. We still stick with it, but there's always going to be that percentage of people out there who's just going to be like, wrestling's fake, you know, right? Yeah.
So is your Marvel shit.
There you go.
Marvel's fake, Star Wars, Mortal Kombat, any type of scripted entertainment is quote unquote fake. It's not legitimate. It's not real. Like you're not really like cutting people in half with a laser saw. I mean, that's not what's going on here. Here's my theory as to why people ask that.
Okay.
It is people that don't watch wrestling and have never really watched it before that were told that it was fake from like their parents who grew up in an era where kayfabe was still kind of real. And a lot of people, particularly in the South here in the U.S., back in the 70s and even into the 80s, thought that it was an actual shoot. When people were trying to climb into the ring and attack wrestlers, and Cornette's told stories about getting punched by fans, and just all kinds of crazy shit like that. And I think that those people from that era were like, that's fake. That's not real. They're trying to tell us it's real, but it's not. So then when they have kids later on in the 90s and in the 2000s, they're like, oh, yeah, that pro wrestling stuff, that's all fake. So I guess people that don't watch it just have a presumption that everyone who does watch it thinks it's real based on how people acted back in the 70s and 80s regarding it. That's kind of my theory on why people ask that. What do you think about that? Do you think
I think you're on point there. I think you've just said it pretty much down to a T there. I fully agree.
All right. That's what I like to hear, that I'm on point.
Guys make sense.
Moving on. Now, this is going to be interesting because this is something that was very prevalent back when I was watching wrestling back in like high school and early college. So I'm curious if you fall into this. What are your opinions on backyard wrestling, and have you ever done it?
So the second part, no, I've never done it. But as regards to backyard wrestling, I think it's more popular, obviously, in the US. I don't think it's as common over here, but the way I see it is every wrestler's got to start somewhere, right? They've obviously got to get like I looked at where they get like experience. Do you know what I mean? Even it does include backyard wrestling, indie shows. You know what I mean? As long as they get that experience,
Sure.
in a match, stuff like that. I mean, I'm sure probably a lot of wrestlers today, all the big names started backyard wrestling at some point.
It's like LARPing, right? But
yeah.
Live action role playing, but actually like pretending to be wrestlers. But the reason why I say it kind of came from my era, like the late 90s, early 2000s, was it really seemed to be kind of became a deal whenever ECW got popular. Mm-hmm. And like it was, people gravitated less towards the technical aspects of the in-ring action and more towards the, well, I can pick up an object and pretend to hit you with it, and that's a lot easier to learn than like a hammer lock. And so I think a lot of kids saw that.
Is it as
oh man, it's cool. I want to try that out. So they'd go in their backyards with trampolines and what have you, and they'd hit each other with shit. I know people that did it.
Really?
Yeah, like legit.
Is it
a guy that got knocked out doing it because he got hit in the head with something? I don't remember what, but
is it as more common now, obviously, in today, or is it not as prevalent?
It's not as prevalent today. It was something that was kind of like I said, like a late 90s, early 2000s thing. And then it kind of died out after that. ECW went away. Hardcore wrestling kind of went by the wayside. I don't see a lot of people today do it. Now, obviously, there's idiots on the internet that do it, like that Superhuman kid, that poor guy. I shouldn't call him an idiot. I think there's probably something wrong with the kid. But yeah, I mean, there's still people that do it. And, it's not a good thing to do. But the WWE did that whole don't try this at home shit. They started all that around like the early to mid 2000s to kind of curtail that. And I think all that just kind of eventually went by the wayside. But I've actually seen some backyard wrestling. Yeah.
Sweet. I might need to look into this because it's not as, like I said, popular obviously in the UK. So, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. Now, this is kind of a more basic question, but I'm curious to see what your definition of this is. What makes a professional wrestler good?
I think it boils down to three things. Storytelling. I feel like when they're in a match to tell like a good story. I'm not like a big fan of wrestlers who literally just goes like squash matches. I really hate squash matches. I think promos is obviously the second one. Obviously, tell a good promo. And I think connection with the fans. Do you know, as an example, like The Rock, I mean, the guy was good in the ring. He obviously has great promos and he had that fan connection. So I think if you look at wrestlers who's got them three things, I think that does make a wrestler good.
I think that's a very good answer. Yeah, and I would agree with that. I think there's a lot of younger fans that think it's, how many flips you do and, how many spots you can throw in and, all that kind of stuff. But no, I mean, it's like you said, it's the ability to connect with an audience. And, I mean, that's really what's important. It's about selling tickets. It's about bringing people to the show, bringing eyes to the product, and the connection with the fans is paramount. So I totally agree with that.
Oh, butts in seats, as Vince says.
Yeah, butts in seats.
Oh, dear.
All right. Now, this question is absolutely ridiculous. Don't know why I'm asking you this. Don't know how you're going to respond even, but this was literally a Quora.com question. How do I wrestle?
Now, do you mean like how do you personally wrestle or how do you wrestle in general?
The question is open for interpretation. I will let you answer however you see fit.
Oh dear, how do you wrestle? I think I'm going to try and like give you like something to compare to a different wrestler, but I'm trying to think of one. So, and I don't want to offend you here. I imagine you're a bit like a powerhouse wrestler. Do you know what I mean? Slamming people, power bombing people, like a. Trying to think of one. Like a Wardlow, do you know, like the physique of Wardlow? That's an example. Yeah. Something like that. I think that's the impression I get from you as a wrestler.
Yeah. All right.
Am I on point, though?
Yeah. I like that answer. All right, we'll move on here. Why do people like wrestling?
Wow.
Very basic, but difficult question.
It is a difficult question because it all depends on who you ask. I mean, for us, obviously, look at the community we're obviously in. I mean, there's so many people there we've managed to connect with. We've got a podcast. But I also think it's the entertainment value. Do you know what I mean? When you watch wrestling. I mean, this is why I personally watch AEW than WWE. I prefer the entertainment value. I mean, a lot of people like slate AEW. Oh, they're not really that good. But if you look at the entertainment value, it's really on point. Yeah, we're not going to like it. It's not going to be spot on for absolutely everything, but they're on point. Entertainment value.
I agree with that. Yeah. I personally like AEW better than WWE. I think WWE is a more polished product, but I just kind of personally prefer the style of AEW. I just like that better. So, I kind of I was thinking about this question as well, and for me, it's just kind of like, and I think I brought this up on the very first episode that I did with you, that pro wrestling is just another expression of good versus evil. Whether we're talking about God versus Satan, or we're talking about Spider-Man versus the Green Goblin, or we're talking about Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant, or Stone Cold and Vince McMahon. It's just the baby face versus the heel. And you could apply that same logic to any form of entertainment or any type of fiction, basically, just about, that's ever been written. So, I think at the very fundamental core, that's why people like wrestling. It's just another interpretation of good versus evil.
And I think you're on point there. You could look at that through life, good versus bad. Home versus, I like that little interpretation there, good versus evil.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're getting close to the end here. We got a couple more, but they're going to be interesting, though. Why do people say wrestling isn't what it used to be? Now, this is another mouthful. Let's see what you have to say about this.
So, obviously, wrestling's evolved throughout the years. I think that when we first watched it as fans, I think that you were used to, like, I said, powerhouses. You used to Hulk Hogan. You were used to Andre the Giant. You didn't see, like, many high flyers or people from different backgrounds. And I think that this day and age, obviously, you've got, like I said, high flyers. You've got Ray Phoenix, who's a prime example. I mean, this guy's absolutely acrobatic as hell. You've got Will Ospreay. You've got Luchasaurus, who's quite tall, but the guy can actually do some good flips.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the best. That's how much. Yeah, it's evolved, but for some people, they don't like that. Me personally, I absolutely love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to kind of give you what my answer would be on this, I think it's kind of a desensitization thing. I think that back in the 70s and the 80s, a headlock and a scoop slam was like a big deal. But then as more people did it, they had to find something bigger to do. So then they started to do power slams, and then they started to do suplexes. And then it went a little further, and then they had to start jumping from the top rope. And then it went a little further. Then they had to start doing flips. And, just over time, there's just kind of a desensitization where you have to kind of up the ante a little bit in order to produce the same effect of mental stimulation. So that's kind of what I think is going on here. I think that's the reason why wrestling looks so different back in like the 70s and 80s than it does in the 90s and the 2000s. And then today in 2022, it looks even different than it did in 2000. So that's kind of how I feel about it.
I think you've well said there.
All right. We are wrapping this up. We've got one more question left.
Go ahead.
I came up with this question. This is mine.
Okay.
And I know the answer to it, but I just kind of wanted to bring this out here and talk about it.
Okay.
Have you been to a wrestling show, and what is it like compared to watching on television?
So, to answer your question, I started the month I was at a wrestling show. It was a show called 1PW, which is basically the British indie show, which has obviously made a big, massive comeback. I obviously got the tickets for there. And the reason I think it's better there is it's the atmosphere. It's like the connection, because you're not just, it's a lot different. It's really hard to explain. You feel more invested into the matches.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. I think that when you watch it on show, I can tell you're like, yeah. But when you're actually there, like front row, middle row, whatever, you just feel that connection. It's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I mean, it's just a totally different experience seeing it live than seeing it on TV, because when you see it live, you hear the music blaring and it sounds like a rock concert, and you hear the boom of the mat as somebody gets slammed down because they position a microphone under the ring that goes over the PA system, and it makes it sound like an earthquake is happening when somebody gets slammed. It's just little aesthetic items like that make seeing wrestling in person so much different than watching it on TV. Watching it on TV, it just seems lifeless compared to actually being there. And, I don't know if you experience this as well, but for me personally, seeing the wrestlers in person is just so much larger than life than watching them on TV. I mean, even like I remember specifically when I went to a SmackDown taping about a decade ago, and the opening dark match was Colt Cabana. Ironically enough, he worked one dark match, and it was in Lexington, Kentucky, against Wade Barrett. And Wade Barrett just always kind of seemed like this generic guy, but the guy's a fucking giant. When I saw him in person, he looked like he was like 7 foot tall and jacked to the gills, and I was like, oh my God, this is just like such a different Wade Barrett than what I feel like I see on television. That's just kind of an example I have off the top of my head. Did you notice that at all when you went to this event?
Yeah, there's obviously as I mentioned there was some really big names. Obviously, Christopher Daniels there. Nick Aldis was there. By the way, he's fucking huge.
Oh, yeah. I haven't seen him in person, but just watching him on NWA and in TNA over the years, he's a jacked up dude, man. I imagine in person, he does look like a monster.
I'll be honest, on NWA, it doesn't do him justice. He's absolutely huge. And I just want to say, obviously, with 1PW, I will be going back in February, and it was announced today, which I'm super excited for. One of my all-time favorites is actually going to be there. Will Ospreay.
Oh, that is awesome. And he is in the prime of his career right now, too. So that for you to get to see your country's best wrestler today, in his prime, that's special, man. That's exciting. I'm happy for you.
The only thing I hope is they do a meet and greet for it, because that to me will be absolutely brilliant. So we shall see.
Yeah, and I think you told me at the event you went to, you met Jamie Hayter. Is that right?
I did. There's actually a funny story with this, and this really sticks with me. So obviously I was queuing up, and obviously I had to book you all in. And for some bizarre reason, because it was the first time, I was so fucking nervous. You're like, oh shit, what if I said something wrong? What if I met me something feel like a tit? Do you know what I mean? I'm literally, everything's going through my head. And then obviously they booked me and they gave me the picture thing. And then just before I walked up, I was like, okay, breathe. And you know what? Obviously I went up, and obviously she was terrific. Do you know what I mean? Really polite, and I couldn't ask for anything better. The picture was shit because I looked stoned on it, but that's a different story.
At least you didn't do the prom style picture where like you put the arm around her waist, like you see the pictures of the dudes with Paige and Becky Lynch.
Oh, Mickey James, that's another one.
Yeah, well, the Mickey James one was that was a gag. It was like making fun of the other ones, but like the Becky Lynch one and the Paige one, those were like legit. Those were shoot situations.
Oh dear, but yeah, I cannot wait. Obviously, I'm meeting. So this in February, I'm meeting Taya Valkyrie, who's I think she's an underrated person, to be honest.
Oh, she's awesome. Yeah, I mean, would probably be considered a legend in Lucha. She doesn't have a whole lot of exposure in the US. I mean, she had a cup of coffee in NXT, and she's been in Impact. But I mean, she's been all over AAA for years. I mean, she's been, one of the big stars down there.
Yeah, absolutely. There's obviously Johnny Thousand Names. I'm sure you know who that is.
Johnny Mundo / Morrison / Impact / Nitro / Elite. Am I missing any?
Johnny Hennigan, which is going to be named at the year.
Yeah, Hennigan. He just went by his real name when he was in the Indies. Yeah, I guess he couldn't call himself like Johnny Jersey Pro Wrestling or some shit like that when he goes to Independence.
Oh dear, yeah. Then obviously Ruby Soho, I'm going to be meeting, and the one who I'm actually really interested in is Rhino.
Rhino, all right, yeah.
So
ECW original Rhino, who's still active.
Yep. So there's going to be some big names there, so I'm excited for that. And then, yeah, absolutely. So
that is very exciting. That's very exciting. I'm happy for you. Did I ever tell you all the wrestlers that I had met? I haven't met many.
Go ahead.
Well, when I was in high school and I was going to my first Monday Night Raw, and my parents took me to get tickets, I met DOA. Do you remember DOA?
I do, but not. I don't remember very, very well. But
they were the Harris twins, right?
Right.
The two identical giant bald guys. That, I think they had a pretty big hand in creating TNA because they owned the the production company that provided like the lighting system and everything, and they were good friends with Jeff Jarrett. But anyways, I met them. Obviously the line was super, super, super long. They barely spoke. They just signed a piece of paper like, "Here, kid, get the fuck out of here." Um, so I met them. That was interesting. I think I told you I met Jim Cornette because
Yeah.
he's a fellow Kentuckian like I am. He lives in Louisville, Kentucky. I'm just a little outside of there, and I met him at a horror movie convention in Lexington, and he was great. I mean, I talked to him for like almost a half hour. This is pre-podcast era.
Mhm.
He was still working for Ring of Honor. He was wearing a Ring of Honor t-shirt, and we sat and just kind of talked about wrestling for probably close to a half hour or so. So that was a lot of fun. And when I was a kid, I met the other big luminary from Kentucky. Can you guess who that is?
I have no idea.
Hillbilly Jim.
Really?
Yeah, I met Hillbilly Jim as a kid because he's from Kentucky. And my daughter's getting in the camera shot here.
No, not to worry, not to worry. So, speaking of Jim Cornette, why is he so hated by a lot of people?
I think it's because he's just very unfiltered in his opinions. And he's got very, very clearly defined positions on. Sorry if you hear that. He's got clearly defined positions on what wrestling should be and what it shouldn't be. And he's an old school guy. He believes in the old school presentation of wrestling. And I love Cornette personally. Of course, I'm biased because I've met him and he is a Kentuckian. I don't agree with everything he says, but I do agree with some of the stuff he says, and I think he's funny as hell. But I think people hate him because he just doesn't say, "Hey, everything is just great and everything's wonderful and I love everything." And no, I mean he takes the piss out of everything because he just believes that the way that did it back in the day was better. I mean, agree or not, I mean that's just his opinion.
I mean, do you agree with that? Is it way back there? Do you agree with his opinion though?
Partially, yeah. I partially, yeah, partially no. I mean, I think the genie's out of go back to the way wrestling was in the 70s and 80s. But at the same time, I would like to see the product be a little more serious and a little less goofy. And, the work in the ring sometimes can be sloppy. And we see that with a lot of injuries happening. Like, you don't have to have a spot fest. For example, I talked about this the other night on Dynamite After Dark. I love that FTR match with Swerve in Our Glory. Did you get a chance to see that?
I have not. Obviously, we're watching that tomorrow. So, because obviously we don't get to watch it till the Friday, but obviously I've been recording. So,
okay. Well, I mean, it was a great match, and it was kind of sloppy. I mean, they had some blown spots in it, but to me, when a wrestling match, it seems more like a real fight. Like, I don't like to watch matches that are just, I'm going to do this flip, and then I'm going to stand there perfectly in place with my arms out so I can catch you. And it's very noticeable. I just don't like I like it to be a little more raw. And I think that match was a perfect example of that because it was gritty. It was raw. It was hard hitting, but it was a great match. It had great storytelling in it. I think sometimes storytelling kind of goes by the wayside in favor of spots.
Well, yeah, absolutely. So we'll obviously wrap this show up. Do you know all the plugin stuff? Do we know where people can find us and stuff?
Well, if I had, was it JFB usually is here that does the All Effing Wrestling deal where you go to All Effing website and you go all the way down to the bottom and you've got all the socials right there.
Oh dear, I'll show you
personally. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, Liam, but
go ahead.
For me personally, you can go to twitter.com/Mr. Isaacs. I would love it if the All Effing Wrestling community would follow me and interact with me. I'd love to talk to you guys. And I have my own channel here on YouTube. I recently put up a review
of Halloween Ends.
Go watch my review.
So, sounds good. So obviously I'll do all the plugin stuff so you can obviously learn it. Is that all right?
Sure.
So you can head to effingwrestling.com. All our social medias are obviously on there. All our podcasts are on there. You can head to prowrestlingtees.com/effingwrestling. Buy yourself a Magic of Wrestling shirt, a All Effing Wrestling shirt, a Wrestling with a Paranormal shirt. a load of other shirts by then. So, Mr.
Shirts I need to
Isaacs,
get.
yeah, absolutely. So, Mr. Isaacs, you were probably on the November the 12th episode, I believe.
You tell me when, brother, and I'll be there.
Yeah, so obviously November 12th, we will obviously be doing a little backstage thing. So people talk about how all things came together, how we obviously met, obviously how you became part of this channel, stuff like that.
Okay, that sounds great. Yeah.
Sounds good. So that'll be obviously November 12th. That's all from me. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you all in the next one. Magic Man out.